You are listening to the Power Women in Green podcast. I'm your host, Ellen Hyukuma. I get to talk to a power woman in green. These women are doing business in a new way, and it's feminine and from the heart. Behind every one of these women in sustainable business, there's a story worth being told. Join me and learn from her road to success and how to incorporate her knowledge into your own life and career. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Power Women in Green podcast. I'm so excited to have you, and I am thrilled to let you know who is today's podcast guest. It is Loliware, and they have invented the straw of the future. The straw of the future is made out of seaweed. Yes, that's right. So it's an edible straw, which is compostable as well in case you don't want to eat it. But this really is going to change the world as we know it. If you listen to this podcast, you probably are aware of the plastic pollution problem in the world, and straws are a huge contributor of this problem. So yes, we need to solve this issue, and Loliware, my friend, is taking this to the next level. Billions of straws will be replaced by Loliware, I am sure of it. So listen to this episode to learn how they invented this straw, their road to success, and how this straw is going to change our lives, and which flavors do the straws actually come in. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you like this episode as much as I do. So good morning in New York from Amsterdam, and welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having us. We're
so
excited.
Yeah, it is amazing to have you here. I've been following Loliware for a while now, and I'm a huge fan, and I think you're going to change the world. So thank you for being on the show. I'm really excited. So Leigh on the right and Chelsea on the left. Yes, just to get the names right for everyone watching. So if it's okay with you, I would like to start with your backgrounds, just to get to know you a little bit. So tell us a little bit about your background and how did you get into product design?
Sure. So I guess I'll start. I grew up in Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, and I grew up in a really creative and sort of entrepreneurial household. So my parents met in architecture school, and everyone in my family was very entrepreneurial, whether they had, a small business, or my mom, for instance, was always working in her own interior design business growing up. So I always grew up, taking art classes and painting classes and sculpture classes, and wanted to go to art and design school. But what drove me to product design was really kind of knowing that I wanted to be in a creative field, but having sort of this yearn to have my outlet be a little bit more focused in problem solving. So finding product design was sort of the perfect convergence for me of both creativity and imagination, but also a really focused in objective around solving a problem.
I like it. And you, Chelsea?
And so I'm the other half of Loliware. I was born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii, and grew up around the water, and grew up in surfing and scuba diving, and have always been passionate about the marine environment and taking care of it. And so that led me on the path of innovation and sustainability, where I also met Leigh at Parsons School of Design, and always been interested in the convergence of also science, translating complex scientific research into design that can impact people. So kind of translating science into products that can help save lives, that can change the world. And so that's really, I'm passionate, more of a science and sustainability nerd.
Nice. Sounds like a great combination, you two. Complement each other well, don't you?
Yeah.
Cool. So you met in college. That's super cool. And both quite different areas of the United States.
Yeah.
So, but Loliware was developed during a food design competition. Isn't that correct?
While we were designing breakthrough innovation pipelines for large companies like Pepsi, Coke, Nestle, we were entering design competitions. And we entered a design competition for Jell-O. And we came up with the notion of, hey, what if you could create edible packaging or edible disposables by reframing Jell-O as a material? And that idea went viral. And I remember when we won third place and got a bunch of press for it, we were just astounded by the level of interest. I think the next week I had an order in my inbox for 60,000 edible cups from Absolute Vodka. And that interest continued to flow into Loliware, and eventually we turned it into its own company because the interest was so great and because the potential was so huge.
And what year was that? The food design competition?
2010, yeah.
So was that the moment that you already realized that it had immense potential, Loliware, or was there still a bit of like, okay, which way are we going to go? What are we going to do? And when was that actual moment?
Well, at the time when we had this like consulting project, I was always leading Loliware as its own project. So I don't know about you, I always knew it was going to be big, and so that's why when I went to leave the consulting and take on Loliware as its own company, you know, I was already kind of charging the path of knowing that Loliware could be a big thing. And then Leanne also believed too, and that's why we joined forces to kind of leave the consulting work behind to really create the most impact and to make Loliware its own company.
Yeah, we always knew that there was such opportunity with this concept. I think one vision that I have in my mind from that time was seeing a full page spread in New York Times Magazine of the very first cup that we created for that competition, and just seeing it sitting there in the Sunday newspaper in the style section and sort of looking at it and really understanding how many people were so interested in this completely new concept. Another thing that was like interesting about that time was we were doing all this work for CPG companies and as Chelsea mentioned, you know, building out their innovation pipelines, but there was still this concept around designing products to be built to last, and the idea that we could take the inputs to those products and make them more sustainable with more sustainable materials, but the solutions were still not sufficient because we were still seeing that everything was designed to last well beyond its useful life. So Chelsea and I are looking at all of these problems and thinking, you know, if a cup is only going to be used for an hour, why is it engineered, even for a single-use plastic cup product, to last for, for centuries, right? And we wanted to understand what would it look like if we moved beyond this way of thinking, this sort of 1.0 way of thinking. And that's where we had this transition from built to last to designed to disappear. And we actually believe that that shift in thinking is a really good example of why it's so important for, you know, as two female entrepreneurs and co-founders together, that's an example of why it's so critical that we have different perspectives, including a female perspective, when we're innovating for our future, because that shift allowed us to completely reimagine what disposables would be and to create this product.
And when you say that, it makes so much sense. And I think in 10 years, we're going to look back and be embarrassed, I think.
Yeah.
About how this was even, how we could have even not have seen this, you know?
Right.
It's innovative, but it's also ridiculous that we've been doing what we have been doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I would like to go into the products now. So what was the very first product like, and how is it different from now? And what do you have to offer at Loliware at the moment, and what's in the pipeline for the future?
Well, the very first product, as Leanne mentioned, was this wobbly cup made from hydrocolloid, which is the family of vegetable-based gels that we use. And it was this wobbly cup in the New York Times article that had an interesting mouthfeel, was very fun, but not very shelf stable, was not a product that could be scaled, was still hand-molded, handmade in an incubator kitchen in Harlem. And since then we've had, moves to various different co-packing facilities, and we've traveled to different countries even to see, do they have the capacity to make our product. And I think the evolution of that's really fun to look at, going from this kind of wobbly thing to a really plastic analog that is shelf stable, that that meets the volume requirements, that's still in line with our brand ethos. So hypercompostability, edibility, fun, obviously marine degradable since it's a food product. And so now that we're poised to launch Lolly Straw, we're really excited to be able to scale that to an immense volume. So we're looking at, hundreds of millions of straws, and hopefully billions one day, to be able to replace billions of plastic cups, straws, and lids. And actually we're excited to share that we're about to make our big announcement that we're dedicated to replacing 1 billion, plastic disposables by 2020. And we wouldn't have really been able to do that, 8 years ago when we were just beginning. It took a long time to work on the technology, to make sure that that there's product market fit, and that we have a scalable solution to the plastic crisis. So now I think we're at this really great time where we have all those things aligned, and we're just really excited where the technology is going. And of course, Leanne, you can mention all the fun stuff we have planned if you want.
Yeah, well, I want to go into a little bit sort of what really sets Loliware apart from other bioplastics and things. So we say Loliware is hyper-compostable. So that means that our products will break down at the same rate of food, either in compost or in the natural environment. So that's a super important distinction from PLA and other bioplastics that can still end up as a contaminant in industrial composting facilities or in the waterways. So they may still end up as pollutants in our oceans and in the Pacific garbage patch, whereas Loliware will break down and disappear, as we say, designed to disappear. And it's also made from seaweed. So that means it doesn't use land resources and actually absorbs CO2.
That's amazing. I love that goal for 2020. And are there different flavors as well?
Yeah, so we just this week are announcing the 7 flavors that our Kickstarter and Indiegogo backers on our Lolly Straw campaign will be voting on to decide the very first flavor of Lolly Straw. So those are carbon, which is with coconut, activated coconut charcoal for detox. Then we have sparkling ocean, which is the straw that's colored with spirulina, blue spirulina, and that is dedicated to our mission to create sparkling oceans again. Then we have citrus, so it's basically the idea of if your lemon wedge could be your straw instead. So for lemon water and teas and all those kind of things. There's heliotrope, which is infused with sun energy, so it's actually like a functional straw that will give you energy once you eat it. And we have vanilla dust, and what else am I forgetting?
We have rose quartz, and rose quartz is powered by flowers. So there's real roses in it, and then it's charged by pink quartz.
Do we have to choose? Can't we just have them all?
No, eventually we'll have them all.
Well, I
sure.
guess like not all flavored. So the air is the 1-to-1 hypercompostable clear straw that you would see everywhere, hopefully. And then carbon is not flavored. Sparkling ocean is not flavored, and heliotrope is not flavored necessarily. So we have some flavored options and some options that are just with a benefit or just beautiful color or yeah. So there's something for everyone, we hope.
Yeah, but I really like it because you've completely also, even with the flavors, you've gone outside of the box. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And especially with the health and wellness scene nowadays, people want benefits. If you can get a benefit from a straw.
What straw would you want to see?
Yeah, I was just saying, I think it's very difficult to choose. And I think for various situations, I would want a different one. Yeah. So the lemon one, like you wouldn't have to put a lemon wedge. That's amazing on your cocktail or something.
Right.
But the charcoal one sounds really good. And the rose quartz, I really like that too. So
awesome.
Difficult. And the name Sparkling Ocean and the idea behind it, that's like oceans are my love, my passion. So
yes. Yeah. We wanted to give people a way to speak about the purpose around the product, because one of our ideas is you can have air and you can not even notice a difference between lolly straw and a plastic straw until you decide to compost it. That's one scenario. But the other scenario is like maybe you're at a bar and someone, your bartender is serving you a straw and someone says like, oh no, I don't want a straw. It like sort of gives them a talking point. This is the sparkling ocean straw. This is why we're serving this.
Yeah.
So that's really important for us, is to make sure that we're communicating out to everyone who's using the product why it's so important.
Yeah, and they all make very much sense, and they're very clear, and they're very fun. They sound very fun.
Yes.
Okay, so I heard the word timeline be mentioned already a little bit. So can you take us on a little bit of a wild ride about how Loliware has evolved over the years? So you just said it was 8 years. It has been 8 years, and so like production, like what was it all like? I imagine it was kind of a circus as well sometimes.
Sure. So we talked a bit about sort of the impetus of the idea in 2010 when we entered that competition. Then we had a few years of product development and developing the product so it would be shelf stable, and also building out the business plan behind it and raising money. In 2014, we actually incorporated the business and started our seed round to fund our launch. And we brought in a few angel investors, and we actually closed that round with Mark Cuban when we went on Shark Tank. And at that time, we were basically in beta mode. We were working in like a 10 by 10 commercial kitchen in New York City, making every single cup by hand and testing that product, essentially with like caterers and event planners locally in New York City. And then after we finished our seed round and went on Shark Tank, it was like, bang, like, let's go. We have hundreds of thousands of dollars in orders to produce. So we were able to commercialize and scale up our production and move into a contract manufacturer and establish our e-commerce business, and also our wholesale business with like more caterers and event planners. And through that process, we were listening to all of our customers and really learning a lot about how they were receiving the edible cup product, the first generation of the product, and what people wanted to see more of, and just listening to all of that feedback. And that's really what we took into account when developing this next generation of Loliware with our new material, Lolly Zero, and with launching the straw. So the past year has been a lot of R&D focus and focusing on what is going to be the next generation of Loliware, what's going to be our next product, and how can we sort of take into account all of the feedback and learnings that we've had over the last couple of years.
And the test kitchen, was that just you two in the test kitchen creating?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you wear like lab coats?
We're a really lean startup at that time. So we would choose the cheapest slot. So Leanne and I would be making one cup at a time from like, I want to say 8 at night to like 4 in the morning or something crazy like this. So we've been a long journey, and now we're really excited to now be partnered with a global manufacturer who's going to be manufacturing our products at scale. So that's how we're going to be able to reach that billion plastic disposables scale, because we have a good partner now who can help us get there.
Great. And does that include Europe?
So we'll be launching in the US and Canada, and then some zones in Europe and Asia. And really our strategy is launching in the zones where there's composting infrastructure and or a ban happening, a countrywide ban or a citywide ban on plastics, because that's really a good zone for us with regard to mass adoption and compliance, and bringing a solution to help solve a problem that they're working on already. So we'll be launching in Taiwan, where the plastics ban is, and in the UK, Scotland, and of course different zones around California, Malibu, and other cities throughout California.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
I love that. So what are your aspirations for Loliware in, you can choose 5 or 10 years? What would you rather do, 5 or 10?
Yeah, I think we should both answer this one. I aspire to create definitely a global company that is known as I'm not sure if you're familiar with this in Amsterdam or the Netherlands, but there's a company that is known for making the world's disposables, and it's called Dart Container, and it's those solo cups, those quintessential red solo cups. And my aspiration is to build a new hypercompostable disposables empire where every single thing that we use that's only meant to be used for 20 minutes only lasts for hours, and everything gets composted. And to be partnered with a lot of different infrastructure companies that are either composting all of our disposables into soil or turning them into biogas through anaerobic digestion, and to continue to engage the world and to have public participation to create a movement around going plastic free. And the way that we're going to do that is by making it fun. And we reposition sustainability as fun forward and ripe with experiential possibility. And that is very unique to our brand. And it's something that we've been working on for a long time. Ever since we launched that first Yuzu edible cup in 2010, we knew that there was something missing from how could we create a movement towards plastic free where everyone would be excited about it, everyone would be engaged. And I think the way you do that is the way that we're doing it right now.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to build on that and sort of how we'll be engaging the public and scaling our business. I want to see, in 5 to 10 years, Loliware products replacing plastic at scale. When I walk down the street and see someone holding a cold brew in their hand, I want that to be Loliware and for that to be the norm. And I also want to see Loliware really being known and used as a material just like plastic. So instead of someone saying, oh, can you go grab some plastic cups for the party we're having later? They'll say, go grab some Loliware cups for the party that we're having later, right? And allowing other businesses to be able to use that material for their own innovations and being able to, sorry, I heard something at the door distracted me. Just really having Loliware out there as a material to replace plastic with all different types of CPG companies who need to innovate as well.
Interesting. So you would like your innovation to be used by other companies to use your way of how you've created Loliware. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so having Loliware available as a material for is to replace plastic with their own products.
So the way that would work is we're creating a seaweed feedstock, which we would license to other companies so that they can injection mold or thermoform or whatever their process is for creating a new plastic-free innovation, so that we're not in the business of everything that could possibly be plastic-free. We're helping others achieve that at scale.
That's amazing.
Meanwhile, we have our really fun products that we sell, and we've licensed the technology so that we can make a greater impact.
Yeah, that's perfect. Love it. I love that I asked that question because I love your answers.
Want to join the team? We're hiring.
Okay. I'm going to hop across the pond again.
Yeah, right?
Okay, and now I want to go to the question that I love to ask all business owners because it's something that all business owners encounter all the time, and it's obstacles. And I like to ask this question because I like to show other business owners that you always overcome them, even though in the moment you're maybe like, oh my God, the world's going to end. So can you name a few or one big one or something that you've overcome, an obstacle that you've overcome in your business, and how did you do it?
Mm-hmm. So I think that we both have a perspective on this, but I'm gonna throw a little bit of like a curveball at you, because our methodology for approaching obstacles is actually a bit of Marcus Aurelius's Stoicism. The obstacle is the way. Mm-hmm. So when we look at obstacles, we actually look at them as, we invert them into opportunities, and we say, what is the information here? What's going on? How can we turn this into the obstacle is the way better to create a way better solution? And more often than not, if you actually break that obstacle into chunks, it becomes an even better solution even better than you could have ever imagined. And I think that perspective on obstacles, it could be totally delusional. It could be totally like hyper optimistic, but it really works for us. And we managed to get through every single hurdle, every single obstacle, you name it, whether it's like making something that's never been made before, finding a factory who will do that, finding the right partners, finding mission aligned investors, finding the capital, every single thing. And I'm sure that there will be a multitude of more, as entrepreneurs always say, there's always a crisis. But I think if you invert your mind on, what an obstacle truly is, could it be an opportunity? That's, at least for me, my perspective on it.
Yeah, I think a really good example of that is, what our biggest challenge in our business has been, which is really creating products and manufacturing products that no one has ever made before. That's a huge challenge for us. And we've done that through, a lot of different ways. But, one example of what Chelsea's saying in terms of the obstacle is the way is, we were going through a lot of issues around launching our first edible cup product and that first material. And I actually feel like if all of those things were going perfectly and everything was going as planned, we wouldn't have as quickly been forced to innovate this new material that we created to address all of those problems, which is actually like 20x better and less expensive and more cost competitive, and is opening up all these other opportunities for us that we may not have done as quickly if everything was going, perfectly as planned. So
another thing I wanted to mention is like, okay, so you have the whole plastics crisis where there's literally hundreds of billions of straws and cups entering the landfill and the oceans every year. And so that's a huge obstacle. And rather than saying, okay, how can we, fix that problem? How can we re-engineer plastics to maybe make them more recyclable? We completely circumvented that whole thing. And we're like, no, it's really about questioning the built to last. Those things shouldn't be built to last anyway. If that is the obstacle, that they're built to last, they should be designed to disappear. So we're going to completely just leave that paradigm and create a new one over here where everything is just bypassing the recycling stream. It's bypassing the industrial composting stream, and it's all going to home compost or it's being eaten. And I think that's a kind of interesting example of how we would look at a problem.
You girls have great answers. Oh my gosh. I'm so impressed. Your minds are so creative. Do you think it's thanks to the degree you also did? Because your brains are you are so forward thinking. I really love it.
Oh, thank you.
You try to turn everything on its head and see what happens.
That's so cool. I'm impressed. Very impressed. So also as business owners, it's hard work. So can you share a little bit, how do you manage it all? I mean, balancing your private life and your career life at the moment, or do you even have a private life at the moment?
I think it's interesting because how our parents, how old are you?
32.
Okay, so I'm 35 and Leanne is 29, right? Yeah, 29. So our parents, is all about work-life separation. It was go to your job and then you have your life. For Loliware, we are so embedded in this. It came from us. We live and breathe Loliware. It's our lives. And I think our generation, as you might agree, it's about work-life integration. And so we're totally 100 million times integrated. And when you're building something this exciting, it feels to me that it's not work. It feels like fun. Of course, we have our hard times, and there's no denying that. But we truly enjoy this path, and it's always just kind of integrated into all these things. So one thing I think is really important for entrepreneurs is to take good care of yourself, so that you can have that new paradigm of that integration that's necessary. So, we're really, remember I mentioned Wim Hof, really into neurohacking, really into optimization, so biooptimization and taking really good care of ourselves, eating at a really high level, meditating. All these things are really important if you need to be that high functioning. And so what my perspective on it is that I live and breathe the work, and I feel energized by it. I don't feel the need to have any sort of separation from it.
And does it also, like, for example, I'm just trying to visualize your office and your workday. So would you, for example, go on a walking meeting, that you go outside and have a brisk walk and energize yourself in those kinds of ways, and have lunch together, but also be able to, like a meeting? Or, for example, I'm just trying to...
Yeah, well, should I explain what our...
Yeah, do you want to have like a little tour right now?
Well, our headquarters is like an old, renovated silk loft. So this factory that we're in, it's like a big loft on the water. So I'm looking out the window and I'm in the forest on the water, and there's a huge waterfall. And so I go out there and get ionized and do breathing exercise all the time. And then midday, I'll go and do a workout, and I'll come back to the office ready to go for another 8 hours and just keep going. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to take those breaks throughout the day so that you can just keep going.
Yeah, we're both very aware of our sort of like surroundings and like our shifts in mindset. So, if we're sitting inside for 4 hours and then we need to have a meeting, like good weather, go outside, get a fresh perspective. And it is really true that actually helps you think more creatively, problem solve more easily if you change your scenery and don't like do and see the same things every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, and it actually is way more productive. It's kind of amazing that, a lot of companies are following suit nowadays, but still a lot of companies are in the old paradigm where it's like 8 hours of work a day, even though the last 4 hours, they're not very productive.
Right.
So on the one hand, it seems like a luxury that you're able to do that, but on the other hand, you're more productive and more efficient probably. And
exactly, yeah.
So for any woman that would come up to you now and has a forward-thinking idea, just like you had, what would you tell her? Like, what off the top of your head, advice would you give someone coming up to you asking you for advice?
Oh man, we do a lot of speaking engagements where we're flooded with a lot of women coming up and asking us. And I think the biggest thing that I'm concerned about, and obviously Leanne and we're literally, solving the plastics crisis. And there's a lot of people doing this, and we need all of them. We need all of the NGOs, we need all of the innovators to come together to solve this because the problem's so massive. And that's our mission. But our other mission is to get acquired by a big company, resource the two of us so that we can invest in women. So the biggest thing that I see is women coming up to me and asking, how did you fund your company? How did you grow? How did you do this? Because you might not know this, but only 4% of funding actually goes to women. So women have been sitting on the sidelines for a century with super innovative ideas, and they haven't been able to realize them and actualize them. And I think that is a new movement that we need to be a part of, because we're so thankful that we were able to get a couple million from mostly all men, be able to talk our way, be able to act like them, kind of play their game to get them to invest in us. And it's true, you do have to become like them. You find yourself imitating and becoming more male in the realm of business because you're literally forced to. And if you don't play that game, you really won't get funding. And the biggest thing that I get asked is, exactly that. How can I raise money? And I think one thing is to definitely help people do that and introduce people if it's appropriate. The other thing is to really fund women. And I think in maybe 3 or 4 years, we'll be in a position to do that. And I think that's the biggest thing that I'm excited about. In addition to the plastics crisis, a couple things.
Just two small ones.
Yes, everything. Yeah. Another thing that I'm thinking about is actually the same answer to your question around, what advice do you live by day to day from a mentor or someone in your life? And this was a really simple statement that someone told us, but I think about it a lot. And I think I would tell this to other women too, that are starting their own business. And it came from Ron Gonen, who's one of our investors and partners from Closed Loop. And we were talking with him, I think just about, hiring someone, and, we didn't know if we were going to be able to make it happen. And he just told us, listen, do not underestimate what you can make happen. Do not underestimate yourself. We invested in your business because we believe in you. And it was a really simple thing to have been said, but I think it's so important to remember that every single day, not to underestimate yourself and to not underestimate your ability to move forward, to make things happen, to realize your vision, to solve all the problems that are sitting in front of you.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
Sorry to quote a man, but that made me think about, related to that Steve Jobs has this great quote. And he says, the moment you realize that everything around you, what we call life, was invented by people no smarter than you, no more creative than you, and you have the power to change it, to modulate it, to create it. And you shouldn't just live with the life that's already been created. You should create your life for you. And if you want to do that, you have total agency. And once you realize that, you'll never be the same.
Yeah, those are so similar. And you can be your own best person, or you can be your own worst enemy. It really is all up to you.
Mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to circle back to the 4% of funding goes to women, because I was at an event 2 days ago, and the woman, her husband wrote an article about funding in the Netherlands. And it was on, I think it was front page, or at least the front page of the business section. And it said it had a woman on the left side and a man on the right side. And the woman, they said what funders think of when a man versus a woman goes to a funder. And so if, for example, they have an expensive car, of the woman, they would say, oh, she's a big spender. Of the man, they would say, oh, he has lots of money, so he's probably good at accumulating money. So they have like completely different views of the exact same situation, just about gender. Blew my mind.
It's real, and it's pervasive, countrywide, country by country. The one thing I wanted to say is that we never stop having gratitude for being in the US. There's a lot of, I think, in terms of gratitude, just being born here and having this opportunity to even build this. Whereas if I were in India, if I were in parts of Africa, it would be much harder for women to do this. And so we stand here acknowledging this opportunity and wanting to make it happen for other women too. And I just want to say that, it's harder for a lot more women. It sounds like it's hard for us, but believe me, it's way harder for other women.
Yeah, thank you for adding that.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Is there anything else you would like to add for our listeners while we finish? Yeah.
I wanted to say that one thing is we love talking to our supporters, and we love answering questions. And I would love to just put our email address out there, hello@loliware.com, if you want to say hello, if you have a question, if you want to talk about seaweed or bioplastics, or you have any questions about our products. That's one of our favorite things to do. So we're here, and we love engaging, and we're just thankful for everyone who has believed in us for a long time.
Thank you so much
for having this awesome podcast.
Yeah.
Yay! Thank you for coming on the show. I admire you so much, and thank you for sharing all the wisdom you shared and for creating an amazing product and doing it from your little test kitchen and creating it to what it is today, and having your goal for 2020 being so massive. And I admire you so much. So thank you on behalf of the planet, the ocean, and on behalf of women as well.
Yes, thank you so much. And if your listeners want to be part of helping us achieve that goal, we have our Lolly straws available at bit.ly/eatyourstraw. That's our Indiegogo campaign. So if they'd like to support, they can go there.
The carbon straws. And offline, we might be in Paris at the end of June for a sustainability conference. And we were, if you feel like skipping over there and doing like a live kind of fun webcast, it might be fun to do that together.
Where is it, sorry?
I'd love to meet you in person. Well, it's like a big sustainability, luxury, kind of really fun thing in Paris at the end of June. And I was just thinking, you're so close. It might be fun just to hang out in Paris for a day and sustainability. I'll send you the details.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, we can stop recording now. I'm just going to say bye. Now, don't you just want to walk into any store or restaurant that you buy a drink and get a Loliware straw and know that you're causing no harm to the planet? Now, that's what Loliware is achieving, and I'm so grateful for these women who are changing the way we use plastics. One of the biggest plastic polluters in the world are straws, and they are changing the way the whole system works. Edible straws, mind-blowing, made from a sustainable material, seaweed. And I love that they're going to patent their materials well so that other businesses can create products with their created system, their created texture, material. So they really are doing this out of service, out of love, and out of a pure passion for product development. So I'm just grateful that they were on the show with me and to share their story with you. And I hope you're as big a fan of them now as I am. And I hope they really are going to take over the world, and I hope every single straw in the world will be a Loliware straw. I really hope that. So if you like this episode, please leave a rating and review on iTunes. I would love to hear from you. Any business you would like me to feature on the podcast or anything you would like me to show more of or less of, please let me know. On powerwomenandgreen.com/Loliware, you'll be able to find the links to the socials of Loliware, their website, and also a link to their Kickstarter campaign where you can actually invest in their business. If you believe in Lolistraw, then please consider this because they really need to have more funding to be able to change the world in the major ways that they're doing it. So on behalf of them and myself, I thank you. It means the world to me that you are listening to the Power Women in Green podcast. It's an important project to me. I really believe these women are changing the world, and I really believe in this new way of doing business. And these women are proving to us that it's possible to do business from the heart, make a difference in the world, and also be successful and inspire others to do the same. So you are a change maker as well, so I thank you for the change you are making in the world, and of course for being on this journey with me. Thank you for listening to the Power Women in Green podcast. Learn how to greenify your life by heading over to powerwomenandgreen.com. Here you can find the latest green news and the best eco products from my favorite kind businesses.